Hey everyone, good afternoon. Ryan talking from the Black Room here. Hope everybody's having a good day today. I wanted to do the part four of four series on scanning for stocks. Right, so that's what this video is going to be about today. It was a little bit of a slow day today. We're in lunch break here. Q's doing a 15-minute sell setup, and so I just want to take this time to do this fourth video. And yeah, it's a little bit of a slower day today, but there's definitely been some opportunity today. I only had one trade today, which was the PX, which we can take a look at in a second. But really been focusing more on swing trades because I've been getting a lot more follow through on the swing trades, and so where I'm getting follow through and where things are working out is kind of what I'm attracted to and what I go after. So I think it's pretty good timing to cover the fourth video, which is in scanning how I get my foundation list for my swing trades. Okay, so let's see, where should we start? So okay, so this is my gaps list today, right? This is after I went through some gaps, and these are some gap berries here, which we'll take a look at. We'll take a look at this PSTG, and then these were additional swing watches that some of them I got from room members, like the AIZ I got, which is a weekly buy setup. The C came up as a climactic sell setup when I was on the mic, but we'll take a look at it on the larger time frames. And I forget why I had the BLDP on here. I think this was a really sloppy gap up, but transitioning. So this is my gaps list. We have the gap ups here and the gap downs. If I find more during the day, I'll add them here. And I also, if I find anything on larger time frames that I want to play as a swing, not necessarily as a day trade, I'll add it to this list, right? So we talked about this before where I develop my gaps list in the morning. We scan for relative strength, relative weakness, which I also will add on here, and we scan for gap bears and gap bullies. So the C came up on relative strength, the PSTG came up on the second scan, which is part 2 of the video, that I'll look for swing trades, and also, or actually the PSTG, I just put on here because it's a gap berry, but there was a nice swing trade. The rest of these I'll be looking for setups. And then 15-minute patterns. Normally nothing really comes up when I'm scanning for 15-minute patterns, which was the third video as far as swing or core trades. And yeah, so this is the list that I'll bring. I'll continue to add to it the rest of the day if I find anything, but this is the list that I'll carry over to my swing list. So let me see. I took a picture. I think I took this either last night or the night before. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Okay, so this is a picture of the list that I have broken down into the swing and core strategies that I play, right? So we have stage 2, stage 4 as day trades, opportunity gaps, gap downs and gap ups. Then I have igniting gaps, which is really kind of my favorite strategy here. We have some monthly setups, transition A, transition C, some climos, and then weekly longs and weekly shorts, right? So this list is a lot smaller than it normally is. Like in an earnings season, we'll get a lot more, especially on the igniting gaps and opportunity gaps, and also in the weekly setups as well. But I'll bring that list over, and then depending on like igniting gaps, the PX today will definitely go in an igniting gap, right? And I'll organize the gaps list. If there's anything that's setting up on the larger time frames, I'll organize that into the specific strategy that I play for swings. All right, and then I'll also look at, actually, let me leave this up. I'll also, okay, yeah, I have TC2000 here. As far as scanning for swings, I'll also look at them on 4 different time frames. So for swinging core trades, I'm really focusing on the hourly, which is down here, the daily, the weekly here, and the monthly chart, right? And then this is my universe, so I will scan this for weekly and monthly setups when the bars close. So at the end of on the weekend or in a new month, I'll scan for monthly charts. And then daily charts, I don't scan too much for daily patterns. I probably should, but most of my daily patterns I get from the gaps list, which is why we're doing this video, right? So this is kind of the layout that I have. I also, in NinjaTrader, which is a portion of this, I also have the same 4 charts. Those are the 4 time frames that I'm focusing on. Okay, I don't really use anything else for swinging core trades besides these 4 time frames. All right, management I may. Right, but as far as the setups and stuff, those are the time frames that I'm scanning. Okay, so let's go back. I just want to show a couple things here. Let's go to on the gaps list. So a couple things that we found today. One is, well, let's start with this PX, right? So with the PX, which I did have a day trade on, made a little bit of money. The back half ended up trailing out, but we can take a look at this. And was up really nicely, but we didn't get too much follow through. So the PX, I will carry this forward as a igniting gap. Okay, so I really like a couple things. One is we got kind of this island reversal here, right? So I like this as a day trade, and I also like it as a swing trade because we do have this island reversal, which is triggering a weekly buy setup here in a bullish stock, right? We did have some sideways price action here, but we got this island reversal here, and this gap down didn't have any follow through. So we're holding this weekly uptrend, right? So this is bullish on the weekly, it's bullish on the monthly, and the daily chart, we've triggered this weekly buy setup through a gap, and so I'll look for a couple setups here, right? Can look for depending on how this closes, can look for like a 1, 2, 3 as a long here. Right, so that's one of the setups. Oops, I meant to grab the eraser there. It can also look for just a base sideways and a breakout. Can also look for a nice pullback with some sort of retest and then play a buy setup long, right? So these are a couple things that I would look for on the PX as far as a long watch, right? The PSTG, which is a gap berry today, which let me look at this on the smaller time frames here. Yeah, so this is a gap berry today, but this was a professional gap up, igniting gap, right? This is in I think this was when we broke this was all-time highs, right? And then we got this move higher and a nice base and a breakout. So just like what we were talking about, right, where we get this igniting gap doji bar, we get this wide range bar, base sideways, and then a nice breakout here, right? So something like this is what I'll look for also on the PX. This is really similar. If we jump back to the weekly chart here, nice weekly uptrend here, and this weekly buy setup was triggered through a gap. Right now, this gap was a little bit larger, so it was a little bit late in the weekly buy setup trigger because of the size of the gap here, where the PX is still within that weekly buy setup a little bit. So I think it has a little bit more room to go than this PSTG, but nevertheless, this is a nice pattern that's set up here. Right. So, and how did this start? It started with this professional gap. So this is part of the reason why I carry pro gaps. Right, let me just go back here. Look how pretty this is. Right, another weekly buy setup. How is this weekly buy setup triggered? Professional gap up, really nice pro gap. We got a couple inside bars, and then look at this breakout. Right, this is why I love professional gaps. Now, I can just scroll through and look. And because I didn't even know this was here, honestly. But if you go back, okay, it's 360 days. But if you go back and look at some of your really nice charts, this is what I'm attracted to, where we get this weekly buy setup and there's some sort of pro gap that initiates that, right? Okay, so that's the PSTG. Let's take a look at the C. So we found this C on relative strength, which we were looking at this for a climactic sell setup, which it did come in, I believe, on the 5-minute. Give me a second. My platform is for some reason pretty slow here. Yes, we were looking at this as a climactic sell. This 5-minute got taken out, pulled back here, got to the 20 MA. But one thing that I do think is really nice, and the financials in general are close to triggering. Now, I do think we have time to set up here, but we're close to triggering this monthly buy setup. Right? So I was on the mic, we looked at a couple examples of a monthly buy setup, wide range bar, inside bar, and it looks like we're going to trigger. Now, this needs a little bit more time to set up, I think. I'm not going to play long right away as we break and trigger this monthly buy setup because we're coming from a wide range bar. But this came up on the relative strength scan, and I'll look for, I don't want to necessarily see a pullback, but I would like to see a base here. Moving average comes underneath price. Maybe we get a shakeout or something to make it really pretty, and then we trigger this monthly buy setup here, right? And so, as you can see, a lot of this is coming from scanning throughout the day. So I do scan for swings on those 4 time frames, but this is also where I'm getting my list from. Let's also take a look at the weekly chart on the C here. Weekly chart, moving average coming underneath price. We got this retest, consolidation here. Looks good. Okay. AIZ, I don't think is quite ready yet, but he's doing a weekly buy setup. Got this from a great room member and is doing a weekly buy setup here. Right, so I will continue to watch this. This isn't quite ready yet because I think it is still in stage 1, but we'll see if we get a nice transition on the AIZ. Okay, what else? Talked about the PX, CPRT was a gap down today. This was my favorite gap today. And we will, okay, we're on the weekly chart. So like this gap down, we had a nice uptrend here, and we just completely broke this uptrend, right? So what I'll watch for is to see if we get some follow through from this gap lower. Now, the CPRT is probably going to be a little bit tough here because we have a huge range, right? So low was roughly 50, so we have like a $6-7 range. So it's going to be tough to see if this sets up because we have this huge range, but this is something that I would look for a short if this continues to roll over, or if this sets up bullishly, I can look for a long, right? So the LMNR is one thing that I've been watching, and we had this professional gap down here. Really like this gap down, and this is something that I'm going to look for as a opportunity gap here, right? So if we jump out and look at, we're at this support, we got to this support, a lot of shock value, and we had no follow through. I mean, I was watching this at the open because I was like, okay, I'm going to play this as a day trade short. We had no follow through. We stayed very bullish, retested, and are continuing to stay bullish here. So this is something that I'll look to play long because I'd like to get into this weekly breakout that's coming to retest support. All right, so it's pretty sloppy right now. But this is something that I'll look for, an opportunity gap where we got this gap down and we got no follow through. All right, so 60-minute we can also look at is pretty sloppy. So what I would really like to see is for this to come back up base sideways here at this resistance, spend some time instead of just retesting here and retesting here, spend some time basing, and I can look to play this as a long with a stop under the base here. Right? But this is an example of an opportunity gap that I got directly from the gaps list, right? Couple other things that I've been watching is possibly the wage. I believe it's the wage, which was a pro gap down. Yeah, pro gap down here. And I'm going to watch to see if this gets any follow through. If we jump out and look at the monthly here, we got this gap down and we're at a lot of long-term support here, right? So we'll see if this gap down gets follow through, and we can see, look to initiate a swing short position if it sets up, right? But as you can see, all of this stuff I'm getting from the pro gaps list. And I would just really encourage you guys to look at some nice trends, right? Whatever you're looking at, and see how some of these how some of these trends, I just want to see if that went climactic before, and it did, how some of these trends were started. And my focus is, as you guys know, I play a lot of professional gaps, right? Only trade today was the PX, which is a pro gap up. And I play professional gaps as swing trades and core trades, but also as day trades because they create a lot of opportunity, right? So the PX long setup was right here, long and a stop. Here's the numbers: 165.50 by 165.19. Was only like a it was only like a 35-cent stop, but I did size it to 50 cents because it was spready. Yeah, we had this nice move after this, right? So I ended up taking some here when I was on the mic, and we ended up failing on this buy setup here, right? But I thought this was a pretty nice buy setup. 2 minutes, pretty nice as well. Let's go back and take a look at that, right? So we got this wide range bar, consolidation, and then a nice pullback here, right? Retest. So it's the only day trade I had today so far. I'm still definitely willing to take something else, but I'm also going to be watching this for a swing long if we get follow through from this professional gap. All right. So, like I said before, I carry this list over, right? Gaps list. I look at them on 4 different time frames to see if there's a possible play, right? Now, not everything is, I'm going to look to play swing long. Like an example that's on here, okay, like the smart, I think it got sold today. So this is a gap up over a red bar, and I was looking for a possible breakdown failure, but I'm pretty sure that as soon as this daily chart loads here, I'm pretty sure that we got sold at the open because I was looking at it at the open. Yeah, and we ended up just getting sold here. Right, so this is not something that I'd be interested in, and so I'll just delete it, right, because we had this sell-off that took place today, so we didn't get any follow-through, right? But the gaps list is a great place to start for looking at swing trades. Anytime I get a weekly buy setup and I get a professional gap that initiates it, that really amplifies the weekly buy setup, right? So I do love using pro gaps or novice gaps for an ending gap to play long, to play swing as well. All right. So we could talk about some patterns and stuff later down the road. We did talk about some of them, but I just wanted to conclude this scanning series because I do scan for weekly setups, as I showed you on the 4 different time frames, but I also use this gaps list to give me a good foundation in my swing list to look for setups. All right, so hopefully this was helpful. We talked about, so the first scanning we did, we talked about scanning for professional gaps before the open. So we developed a hot list, what that looks like, and what to focus on at the open because things are moving quickly. The next thing we talked about was scanning in part 2. We talked about scanning relative strength, relative weakness, scanning additional gaps, scanning gap areas and gap bullies for opportunity to give us a list for the rest of the day. And then after that, we talked about scanning 15-minute patterns. I kind of showed you guys the layout that I have, breaking it into sectors for 15-minute charts, where I look for patterns and how to look at a bunch of charts at once. And then lastly here we talked about carrying the gaps list over for swing trade opportunities. We looked briefly just about 4 time frames. It's really simple. 4 time frames: hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, with a 200 MA and 20 MA. So it's really simple, just looking for those as scanning wise, and also using the gaps list to get some really nice ideas. Get some really nice ideas for the swinging core trades. All right, so let me know if you guys have any questions. Feel free to email me or post in the comments if you have any other questions about scanning. But hopefully this was helpful, and we will talk soon. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great day.